Hey, this is Tom, and in case you're following the Evergrande story, I'm sure today you're feeling extremely confused because this is actually getting out of hand. On the one hand, you read the Wall Street Journal, and in that article, they tell you that the government in China instructed local government to brace for impact if Evergrande actually fails, basically telling them, hey, we're not bailing out Evergrande. On the other hand, we know that today is the deadline for the dollar denominated payment they have to do, 83 million. Also, if you take a look at the stock price, it actually went up today by 18% in a single day on the eve of this coupon. So what the hell is going on and how these three pieces of information can actually coexist? Which they can. I assure you they can. It makes perfect sense, but mainstream media is just too lazy to do their job and actually connect the dots. It's very simple. It's going to be a 3-minute video. Check this out. So on the one hand, we have the Chinese government essentially leaking information, letting everybody know that they've instructed the local government to brace for impact. Now, what the hell does that even mean? What kind of bracing for impact the local government can do in China? Can you understand how things work in China? The local government pretty much asks the central government what to do when they go to the toilet. It's not a system that basically works independently. So that kind of instruction means nothing. It means jack shit unless you're trying to tell everybody how you're not bailing out these rich bankers that screwed up, which is exactly what they're doing here, which goes exactly according to my prediction from 2, 3, 4 days ago, which is China is going to play the game basically saying, hey, we're not bailing out Evergrande, we're not bailing them out. And whenever somebody tells you something categorically about themselves, it's usually the opposite. So check this out. On the other hand, we know that today, Thursday, is the deadline for the dollar coupon. That's the big one. We know that they've settled the yuan coupon. And that's a question how exactly they settled it. They haven't told us that they repaid it. They just told us that the bankers in China actually worked out an agreement, which is also something I told you about. There's going to be pressure from the Chinese government on the Chinese banks to give them a little bit more time, which is exactly what happened with the local yuan denominated bonds, which basically went away for a while. So now we're faced today with the deadline, $83 million. And if they miss it, they're basically screwed. And all of us are screwed. Wrong. Now check this out. Why did the stock price went up today? You know, there's a reason for that. People are not idiots. The reason is because the deadline today is completely fake. It means nothing. Now, I'm going to tell you in a second why, but even if it was real, it's not a huge deal, which I explained in my 2 previous videos, which you can go check out. I'm going to put the links below in the description. So today's deadline is meaningless. Imagine you're buying an apartment, right? And in the apartment, you have an agreement basically when you have to vacate the premises or when you have to accept the premises if you're the buyer. And in every agreement like that, there's a grace period. Eventually, somebody will run into problems and they'll need some more time to basically evacuate the premises and give you the keys. You know, shit happens. And usually it's a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. The same thing, the same grace periods are very customary in lending. There's a lot of variables, a lot of unknowns. Nobody's going to penalize you if you miss a payment by a day or 2. Now, in the case of Evergrande, they have a 30-day grace before any triggering of any penalties. Now, check this out. This is really interesting. So shout out to Patrick Boyle. If you're not yet subscribed, the best underrated channel on YouTube, my favorite, go and check him out. He says that Evergrande are probably going to default on purpose on the 83 million because there's no consequences. There's no penalties. It literally is meaningless. It's completely declarative. There's no operational, there's no triggering of anything. So basically what Patrick explained to me, and I tend to agree with him, is that he thinks that they're going to default today just to keep the cash for another 30 days because cash on hand is definitely more valuable than repaying a coupon early because for them, it's early. Now, that means that the deadline is not really today. And that is exactly why you saw the spike. The 18% is because there's informational arbitrage. Certain people, certain investors didn't understand that, thought that today would be the deadline, sold out, and a lot of other investors actually took the opportunity. But if you've been watching my videos, you know that we've been talking about this for a long time, for a whole week, basically saying that this whole thing is FUD. I'll explain why. Now, I'm not a fan of Chinese stocks, not even by a long shot. But what I explained to you in my previous videos is that this company, even if they eventually default on this, it's completely meaningless. And I'll explain why. So because they hold real estate, what you have here is a very closed circuit situation. In real estate, the most important thing for a company is trust. If they lose trust by the people who finance them, they're pretty much screwed because it's a cash-intensive business. You need a lot of cash to raise these infrastructure projects. So you need a lot of debt. And if the bankers become antsy and they think that you have issues, on the first sign of weakness, they're going to cut you off, essentially creating a snowball effect, a self-fulfilling prophecy of failure. So that is why you can't seem weak. And if this would have happened in any Western country, I guarantee you that Evergrande or their competitors from the West would never have gotten a single dollar. But because this is in China, it's a whole different story, because the Chinese government literally controls the Chinese bank. So they can control the enforcement of these clauses, these provisions. And what the Chinese government can do here is basically go to the banks and say, well, give them more grace, give them time. Because in real estate, the only thing you need is time if you're in deep shit. Because real estate has actual value. It's not like securities, it's not like options, it's not like derivatives. If they actually manage to finish these buildings, they're going to be able to sell them, maybe at a discount, maybe at not a great price, but they have value, and there's going to be a lot of cash flow coming in once they actually finish these projects, which means most of these debts will be repaid as long as they're given enough time and enough cash to finish the projects. Now, this will happen in China, in my opinion, because of the way the banking system is there, just basically to execute the policy of the Chinese government. So I don't see any failure in this company, even if they default on the 30-day, which I still don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But here's my theory. As long as the Chinese government plays this double game, on the one hand saying we're not bailing them out, on the other hand pressuring Chinese banks to give them time, money, and leeway to finish these projects, I think that is more likely than not that within the next 30 days, there's going to be a lot of money flowing indirectly from these banks into Evergrande in order to help them cover the $483 million debt. Just my theory, but this is what I think is going to happen. Now, eventually, as I mentioned this before, once this whole saga goes away, I think the Chinese government will take a massive uppercut into this company, completely breaking it down into a million different pieces so this never happens again. But as I mentioned before, this 18% spike that we saw today is just a manifestation of the same things I told you yesterday and 2 days ago. That this whole Evergrande story is blown out of proportion. It's all FUD, and it's coming from me, not a China stock fan, not a China economy fan, and they're lucky it's real estate, because if this was securities or derivatives or debt, my goodness, this would have been a shitstorm. But this is easy. Real estate, all you need is time and patience, which the Chinese government will quietly provide for them to finish this out. So, complete non-story. There's another 30 days even for the next FUD. And if you think otherwise, let me know below. Just keep it respectful, don't talk about my grandpa. He gets annoyed. He reads all the comments. I'll see you tomorrow.